Well, the Ashes have delivered once again. We have seen a game for the ages. At the start of the day, the big question was, could Australia find a way of tracking these runs down, or could England find the wickets they needed to get their campaign kick-started off? I think at the end of the day, Eoin Morgan and Kumar Sangakkara, every single person that is watching, I know half of Australia was still up watching this, everyone at the ground here at Edgbaston, right around the country, they've just said, we expected this to deliver, it did. Sit down, brace yourselves, because we're going to strap ourselves into a massive, massive ride. At the start of the day, where were you sitting? How did they get it done?
Yeah, at the start of the day, I was firmly in England's camp. I think turning up on a day like today, when there's rain forecast and overhead conditions, we know in England that can play a huge part when it comes to movement in the air and off the seam. So that's the reason I was in England's camp. It just, we have had one passage of play throughout this game where there have been overheads. Otherwise, it's just been excellent batting conditions, a little bit of turn on offer. But yeah, I thought England would have got the ball moving around early, potentially get a couple of chances from Usman Khawaja, who's had an incredible test match, really has. He'll definitely sleep well tonight. But
I don't think they'll sleep tonight.
You know them too well.
Yeah, so again, it ebbed and flowed throughout the whole day. But what a finale. You know, I think it was past 4 a.m. On the east coast of Australia as the winning runs were hit. So, you know, for both sets of fans, just incredibly proud. Both sides have left everything out there.
I think if we had a pound for every time we said or heard 2005, we'd all be very, very rich people. I think the other one that certainly comes to my mind, because it's Ashes, was Headingley. The last time Australia was here, 2019, where Ben Stokes and Leach got them over the line and hung in there. And it had that kind of vibe about it.
Didn't Nasser mention the run out that Lyon fumbled and was it Justin Langer who kicked the bin?
Then put the rubbish back in.
Yeah, but that's the brilliance of a series like this. So many reference points in history that you can draw from that, and it's things that happen even in 2023, taking your mind back, you know, taking the minds back of the commentators and the fans back to these great moments that everyone remembers, iconic moments. And some iconic moments created here. You know, Nathan Lyon doing the reverse and taking Australia over the line. Pat Cummins, Usman Khawaja's brilliance and stubbornness, the declaration from Ben Stokes, the braveness of England, Joe Root's brilliance, and just the skill versus skill contest that we've seen over 5 days. And then add to that the tactical battle. England really stubborn. They stick to what has worked for them in the Bazball era. That was absolutely brilliant. Australia still playing their style of cricket, but with a difference. We saw on the first day when the fields were spread, that's not the way Australia plays. We never do that. But Pat Cummins was brave enough to do it, didn't care what we thought or anyone else thought, and stuck to it through 5 days of cricket. I think at the end of the day, brilliant curtain raiser. A great head-to-head battle of skill, tactics, and endurance and courage. Australia has won, come up ahead by a very small margin. Yeah. But I think both sides will be really satisfied with the effort they put in. Disappointed that for England in terms of that they've lost, but Australia winning a close game. It'll stand both sides really well in terms of the next 4 test matches. Not many questions in that sense for both sides. I think they will stick to their guns and keep playing.
The last time Australia chased more than 250 for a test match win was back in 2011. Pat Cummins was on debut all those many years ago, and he was not out. He hit the winning runs in that match as well. You now look at the Australian skipper. He's into his 17th test as a skipper. It's sort of a defining one for him, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. And given how much strategy has gone behind their win, they went a little bit away from tactics like we've talked about for the last 5 days, a little bit more defensive, but getting to that finish line has been the objective, and they've managed against the run of play a little bit, you would say, to pull the win, which is obviously the most important, because Mitchell Starc was missing, adds strength and depth to their batting. But Nathan Lyons stepping up and to play in the manner that we did. We know Pat Cummins can play like that, but this just adds another dynamic to the series.
And there's a little cool flick over Midon, and everyone in the comm box was, what was that?
I think he took 8 wickets in the game, and obviously guys are being aggressive or more aggressive than previous England teams. So maybe he's just said, you know what, I want some of this.
Without a doubt. On the flip side, Ben Stokes' captaincy. I mean, there was numerous times right throughout the test where we say the words brave, you know, the cricket smarts. He's redefining test match cricket. We know he's not going to stop with this aggressive approach. What do you think he'll be thinking once he sort of settles down and has a bit of think about the last 5 days?
Oh, he'll be disappointed but quite satisfied as well. You know, the performance they put in was incredible. We always think, oh, it's quite impulsive cricket, or you know, that England play now. It's very free-flowing and free-form, and it's there's a lot of planning that goes into it behind the scenes. Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes sitting down, and there's a great foil for each other. Brendan McCullum, and Morgan pointed that out as well when you were talking one day, but you know, he gives off the impression that he's very free-flowing and everything's in this almost a free-for-all, but there's a lot of thinking that goes on behind it. Ben Stokes is free-flowing. He is expressive. He doesn't let the game drift. But how he and McCullum kind of meet, their minds meet, and they settle on tactics is why it's so attractive out there. And that partnership has paid great dividends to England. So I loved Stokes' captaincy, not just this particular Test match, but throughout. Yeah. And I admired Pat Cummins' captaincy, because one of the most important things, you've got to have belief. You can't have the captain waver, because your team's watching you. People are watching you. And the message they've sent each other and everyone watching is, we are well set in how we want to play this series. England one way, Australia the other. Yeah. Both ways can win. Yeah. You know, there's nothing to choose between them. Yeah, we might call things old-fashioned or defensive, whatever. At the end of the day, they're both trying to create a result that's advantageous. And both sides had a magnificent game. Stokes especially should be very proud and very happy at the way they played.
Oh, and there was probably the bookend of the games in terms of big decisions from Ben Stokes. The first was the declaration on day 1. Fast forward to today on day 5, and there was a decision about whether or not to take the new ball. So Joe Root stayed on, got a critical wicket, but then they kept going with the old ball. There would have been a lot of discussion between Broad, Anderson, Root and Stokes to get to that point.
Yeah, and there was, you know, it's probably one of Ben's biggest attributes. He doesn't mind taking advice on board from his senior players and almost a brains trust. And I'd imagine if there was something significant, it would be sent on the field as well from Brendan McCullum. But constantly taking in information, debating whether or not that was the time to take the new ball. It proved, you know, very profitable. Joe Root taking the wicket at Carey. But we saw right in front of our own eyes why they were digressing over that decision, because the new ball just skidded on. Ricky Ponting at tea time interval today said, you know, some of the best times to bat throughout this Test match have actually been against the new ball. So there might be a little bit of hesitancy around it, and it did prove costly. It in many ways, but I do think it was the right decision. The game was slipping away from them with the old ball. Stuart Broad did beat the outside edge on a number of occasions, but you know what? Australia played really well.
Yeah. Someone who played exceptionally well for Australia for the majority of the game. I think prior to his dismissal, he hadn't been on the ground for just 3.3 overs, is Usman Khawaja, and you're smiling, lefty, you know, you would have loved it, wouldn't you? What impressed you most about it? I think because he came into this series, and there was a bit of question marks around his form. In England, away he'd been great, hundreds in Pakistan, hundreds in India. This was his last mountain to climb, really, at the back end of his career, and he started the series beautifully.
Yeah, he did. I mean, amazingly impressive temperament, great kind of tempo to the innings in terms of just buckling down, settling down for the long haul. He did the same in the first innings, allowing partnerships to build and confidence from the non-striker watching Usman Khawaja just hit everything with the middle of the bat, taking down Moeen Ali the way he did, the ease on with which he played on a pitch that was turning. So much, like you saw the celebration, it was such an outpouring of just relief and validation that all he's worked for to get here in England. Forget the runs he scored before. I think it was very important that he got that 100 here. That was brilliant. The only thing I think the Australian batting liner might have to kind of wonder about is there were a couple of critical moments in my view in the chase, nothing in their first innings. One was when David Warner got to that stage and the runs were drying up and he had this offside field that was stopping everything that he played, all the good shots that he played. Could he have actually gone harder? And because Khawaja was just not going anywhere.
Yep.
And then Cameron Green coming in. Moeen had just bowled a couple of overs. He couldn't continue. His finger was bad. Why allow Joe Root to bowl so many overs for not many runs when he could have actually, with the field all brought in, could have gone over, actually reverse pressure a lot quicker against England and really made England kind of think about what are we going to do now. But Khawaja's presence and the fact that he took the game down to such a long ways from one end was remarkable and one of the main reasons why Australia won as well.
Ashes are always a little bit spicy, and there was a little bit of spice coming in between Ollie Robinson and Usman Khawaja, so there was a bit of lip and a send-off in the first innings. During the second innings as well, Ollie Robinson bowled what he said was a half volley outside off stump and questioned why it was he didn't play it. The field's up, it was a freebie, and Usman said to him, well, that's why you're not a batsman. And it went back and forth a little bit more. Well, I can expect this to go on. I think Robinson also said, oh, he speaks. So it's starting to bubble away a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Here, if I was a bowler bowling to, and I've never bowled a lot, bowling to Usman Khawaja, I'd stay quiet.
Yeah.
He looks in serious form, and the most impressive thing for me is the ease at which he's doing it. It doesn't look like he's getting out of that bubble that he's in, and he's sticking to the process. You know, he's probably made one mistake over the course of 5 days, which is remarkable. Under the pressure, under the spotlight, and taking on the responsibility of scoring the bulk of Australia's runs. It's just incredible start.
Yeah, we could chat about this test match for quite some time, but I'm mindful of time. Let's cast our mind forward a little bit. There wasn't too many areas where you could sort of have a point of difference between the two teams within this test match. When you cast your mind forward to Lords, Moeen Ali's obviously got the finger injury for England. There was no Mark Wood, where people were saying, gee, that extra pace could have come in handy within this test. Where are the positions of change, do you think, if any?
Yeah, they'll have to debate that, especially on a wicket that's flat. The sameness of an attack for the Australians the same in terms of do they get Stark in? And also 5 test matches in a very short period of time. You can't have all the same fast bowlers playing all the games. You saw Anderson not doing a whole lot of damage. I'm also interested to see what the pitches are going to be like, especially if they continue to be like this, and Stokes has asked for that. Is that actually working in England's favour, or will the groundsmen listen? And if that's the case, then they have some serious decisions to make in terms of the spin department. Who are they going to convince to come and play? Who are they going to pick? There's talk about Liam Dawson as being a great option. A few decisions to be made in terms of that, and especially, this is England's stronghold, Birmingham. If they won here, they're not very happy playing at Lords. Not a great history in Test cricket, so the Australians will be mindful of that. But apart from that, I think both sides will just continue playing their style of cricket, and it'll produce some amazing cricket going forward to Lords.
Kumar just mentioned it there. When you win at Edgbaston, where you know England's been so good, I think they've got a 54% win ratio here, and then Australia look to Lords where they've done reasonably well. All of a sudden, you know, all going to plan, it's 2-0. So it's critical, isn't it?
Well, I think it's huge. And again, we highlighted it before the series starts. England's home or record at Edgbaston is outstanding. They need to start well, almost to reassure the confidence in the changing room, and also make selection a little bit easier. The points that you've made around Moeen Ali. Ben Stokes is bowling as well. Clearly bowled in discomfort today, although he did a great job. I think he bowled 5 overs for about 7 runs, and obviously took the important wicket at Usman Khawaja. Whether you bring Mark Wood in and who it's for, or were you happy with Joe Root's bowling today? If Joe Root becomes the out and out spinner, and you bring possibly either Mark Wood or Chris Stokes in, Chris Stokes would lengthen the batting lineup, and also his record at Lords is incredible.
It is brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
So a few questions for England around selection. Also, Jimmy Anderson obviously didn't play a big part in today either. So is that fitness or just a little bit of rustiness around that? But if you're Australia, you're cock a hoop. It's absolutely great news for Australia, and a lot of work to be done on a ground where they haven't had a lot of success.
Is there still a question around Bairstow and the gloves?
No.
From me, yeah. Sorry, speak to the keeper.
No, sorry, I don't know. No, definitely not. He's ideal at number 7. Modern day cricket, you can't play a wicket keeper for the sake of wicket keeping. Unfortunately, that's the case for Stokes. He's an excellent batsman, Stokes, but Bairstow is one of the best in the world. Keeping is something you can improve, and he'll be working very hard.
Yeah,
I'll play devil's advocate. Let's say that you keep both in and you shift an opening spot.
Yeah, that's a good point. Again, it was raised in the series before, but I actually think that the side that they've gone with is a really strong side. Pope scored a double hundred at Lords. Duckett 150. Crawley, set the tone in this series. They don't tend to react dramatically towards selection. I think Moeen Ali might be a forced change, and then the other will be tactical, who can add to that seam bowling attack, and that'll probably be it.
I think we'll be the ones talking and trying to answer questions, and I think Stokes and Brendan McCullum and the team.
They'll be at the golf course
going. Golf course or at the bar, saying, "Yeah, we just want to keep playing." I leave the questions and answers to the rest.
Fellas, thank you so much for that thoroughly entertaining chat as always. Thanks for joining us on Sky Sports Cricket Ashes podcast. A reminder that the women's test, a 5-day test, starts the day after tomorrow at Trent Bridge, and we'll be back with the podcast for the start of the second test at Lords on Thursday the 28th. I have got that right. There we go. I hope you've enjoyed this evening. Commiserations to England fans, but I'm sure you'll be bouncing back very, very quickly. We'll see you in a week's time.